So learning how what we say weighs. When I speak to my wife, I have the power to encourage and uplift her like no other. And sometimes she'll be so helped by something I say, or so discouraged by something I say, and I'm like, whoa, I didn't get that at all. Mm-hmm. And weight is what I'm usually missing when that happens.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the It Stands Written podcast. My name is Braden, and I got Justin in front of me. We are in our series on the second most important decision of your life. Today is the question on communication. So the question is, are we both devoted to godly communication? And Justin, you would agree communication is a very powerful, strong thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the most, probably if you talk about couples where they're going to know whether they fit for one another, it's going to be this one, because from now till the end, this is like your relationship really is this.
Yeah. And communication, like that's what we're doing right now in our conversation. That's what we're doing for the listeners. And we see God use communication too. He communicates to us through his word. And we have that, and we can see what he has said to us, and we can take that example and put into our own lives. And two, part of the question, it says godly communication. Mm-hmm. So this is not just any communication. Right. It's not worldly. Yeah. It's godly. So that's communication we got to pull from scripture, from the Bible. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to dive into some scriptures, see some examples on how to communicate godly. So Justin, if you want to go ahead and kick us off.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, you make a really, really important point. I think that God made us in his image, and that's with the ability to relate to one another, and communication is the heart of that. If you don't have communication, you can't relate to anybody. You can't express yourself. You can't get out of you what's inside of you, and you can't put that into the other person so that they can both understand and then respond. All those things are pretty vital. And when you share a life with the most important person in your life next to the Lord Jesus, you better have some strategies for communicating. Yeah. You want to know, how do I communicate? And couples have different ways of going about this, right? They were raised in different homes. Some families, they never talked about anything. Some kids I know, as they grew up, they're like, man, I never saw my parents fight. Other people are like, yeah, we always saw them throw things, that different ways of working through communication. As soon as you start talking about communication, you find that very naturally, you're going to have to find out what is our baseline, what is going to be the way that we communicate with one another. And as soon as you start talking about communication, you're talking about conflict, because conflict is typically a breakdown in that communication. Yeah. Something said, something not said, something inferred, something you took the wrong way, or I didn't mean it like that. And how many conflicts do we know of that start with a breakdown there that have to be resolved? But the way to resolve that is by godly communication. And so God is the one who took the initiative to communicate. And he's communicated in his word. He's communicated in revelation through general knowledge in creation. God has no problem communicating. And so we want to follow ourselves after him, even though we are sinful, fallen, and finite in that capacity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And communication, like without that, all these questions you can't even answer. Like the questions we've been through, are we both Christians? Without a doubt. Well, unless you communicate and talk about each other's lives, how are you going to know that? Are you committed to love biblically? Like this is a foundational thing to be able to discuss that, to be able to grow and even complement each other.
Well, I find that true to be in counseling as well. When I have couples meet with me, sometimes it's premarital, sometimes it's in the context of a young marriage, sometimes it's couples who've been married a long time. The number one thing they want to work on is, how do we communicate better? Yeah. So this really is relevant. And it's cool, because these are all of them, even the questions you just described that we've been through in this series, all of them are essential, and we're almost done with these, which is kind of fun. So if you're still with us and you're like, okay, all right, I'm on number 10. We're close, hang in there a little bit further, because, this could be for you. But this really is so important. But let me push it one layer deeper, right? The issue isn't always we have bad communication style. or bad communication technique. Now, what we want to do is eliminate all the issues where that technique or style is an unnecessary hindrance or barrier, right? But Jesus said, and we have to underline this because this is really where it's at, in Matthew chapter 12, verse 34, he says, the mouth speaks out of that which fills the heart. So we really are talking about a heart issue here. So it's not style, it's not technique, it's not saying less, it's not, look me in the eye. Those are helpful things that you could do. But in truth, this is a heart issue, not a mouth issue. And what's cool is God has given us so many things in his word about what to understand when we speak as it comes out of our hearts. The heart is where we need to change. So what I say, how I say it, what I do not say is going to say so much about me at the core of my being. And so there might be techniques. So we could talk about techniques today. I think we should. But techniques minus a changed heart isn't going to get you there. It's got to be so much deeper. So here's a verse, Ephesians 4, and I think you have it teed up over there. So Ephesians 4:29 gives us kind of a starting point when it comes to relationships biblically and the art of communicating. Ephesians 4:29, you got it?
Yeah.
Okay, go.
Let no unwholesome word proceed from your mouth, but only such a word as is good for edification according to the need of the moment, so that it will give grace to those who hear.
Man, that's such a good verse, isn't it?
Yeah.
So let's unpack it, can't we? What's the command there?
Let no unwholesome word proceed from your mouth.
Okay, so now this is interesting because in Ephesians 4, which is Paul's put off, put on chapter, there's a counter of what you should stop doing, and then there's a replacement for that unrighteous activity that you should start doing. So it's not until you've started doing the righteous behavior that you'll actually stop doing the sinful behavior. So let no unwholesome word proceed from your mouth. Now, the word unwholesome, do you know this? Do you know what it means? It's a word that has a picture in the Greek. It refers to stinking, rotten fish.
Oh.
You ever smelled stinking rotten fish?
I have.
You ever smelled your socks after a long workout?
Yeah.
So
a couple days ago.
Yeah, it's imagine that when you open up your mouth and talk, or to use the language of Romans 3, an unbeliever, when they open their mouth, they have a foul stench of their spiritual deadness. The poison of asps, he says, is under their lips. Their mouth is full of cursing and bitterness. They smell like death based on the words that they say. That's coming out of the heart. And that shouldn't be for a believer. If you have something coming out of your mouth that is tearing somebody down, that is unwholesome, unedifying, or you just use the word rotten from your mouth, then you're sinning. So what would be some examples of that? Rotten words, sinful words. Let me take the obvious one, profanity, cuss words. Obviously, that's forbidden things that you'd never, ever, ever hear Jesus say. For sure. What else? What do you think?
I think just like words like slandering people, like words to put them down, to defile their character, to lessen the image that they were created in, an image of God.
It's kind of a character assassination. What's the opposite of slander? You might do flattery. Slander is something I'll tear your reputation down. I'll never say it to your face, but I'll say it behind your back. Flattery is something I would never say behind your back, but I'd say it to your face. There's gossip. What else? Oh, no, we should define gossip. What is it?
Gossip it's information that you have of someone that you're sharing to other people without their permission in order to put them down.
You're not part of the solution. They don't need to know. It's useless. There's other things, lying, right? And there's a spectrum of lying. There's bold-faced lie, and then there's what we sometimes call evangelistic. You kind of stretch the truth, being a little bit exaggerated on that. The fish was this big, misleading people. That's another form. Complaining. How about just talking too much? It says in Proverbs that you should guard the amount of words that come out of your mouth. In fact, it's Proverbs 10:19. When there are many words, transgression is unavoidable. Like the wise person knows how to not overtalk, right? But he who restrains his lips is wise. So the ability to hold yourself back is huge. There's also undertalk. You're not saying enough. Right? Those are other expressions of that. Other examples of sinful speech. You could be backbiting, kind of clapping back and snarky. Sarcasm. Now, some sarcasm is good. God is sarcastic. Some of the prophets in the Old Testament, they were super sarcastic and actually pretty funny. But there's an appropriate use for sarcasm. Sarcasm is using irony in speech to make a point that doesn't need an answer, right? What other kinds of sinful speech might there be?
I think if you're focused on
How
yourself.
about interrupting people like I just did?
Yes, interrupting people.
All right, thank you. Go on.
I was going to say just focusing on yourself too much. Like you don't, in communication, like you're not asking questions about how other people are doing or how their day was or what they're learning in the word. Like you only talk about yourself.
Yeah, that's big time. Self-preoccupation for sure. Monopolizing conversations could be an expression of that.
Yeah.
I think of what it says in Proverbs that the babbling fool will come to ruin. That's kind of over-talking too, but if you're just always monopolizing the conversation. Right. Here's one. Can I throw out one that's kind of a maybe a little bit more nuanced? And can I have you look up a verse for this? Proverbs 18. Proverbs 18. This comes up a lot, and this is worth slowing down on a little bit. Proverbs 18, there's 3 verses really to look at. Verse 13, we'll start there.
He who gives an answer before he hears, it is folly and shame to him.
So this would be jumping to conclusions.
Yeah.
You just made a decision about something or someone, and you don't have all the information.
Yeah.
Okay, verse 15.
The mind of the prudent acquires knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeks knowledge.
So listen. Yeah. Okay, verse 17.
The first to plead his case seems right until another comes and examines him.
Have you ever been in a situation like that where you're talking to somebody and you're like so convinced and they're so convinced and you're like, wow. And then you hear the other side of the story?
Yeah.
You're like, you left out a couple of details.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few things missing in that particular. So you sounded amazing until somebody cross-examined you.
Yeah.
So that's biased speaking where everything is in your favor. What about defending yourself?
Yeah.
What do you think it looks like when somebody's defending themselves? Like what's wrong, especially in the heart attitude of that? Like when a person's doing that, what are they doing?
Yeah, I think the heart attitude is they're trying to justify themselves, and I think it stems from pride. Like, say someone's calling you out for your sin, and you're trying to defend it. Like, oh no, like is this situation this came up, and I just had to. It's like you're trying to justify it instead of humbling yourself and admitting to it.
Yeah, making excuses, blame shifting, dismissing it, rationalizing it away.
Right.
Yeah, totally. Minimizing it, getting technical. No, that's good. That's good. I think nagging is another one. Being critical and fault finding is another one. Like when you're sitting there waiting for somebody to fall and that you remind them of their flaws, or you're in an argument and you want to reach back for some, this will win. If you just say this, you'll kind of win the argument and destroy them. Right. Yeah. So those are some pretty intense things. Okay. So that was the rotten side, Ephesians 4, right?
Yeah.
So let no stinking, rotten fish type words come out of your mouth, but he gives a flip. Go ahead.
But only such a word as is good for edification.
Yeah. Okay. So the opposite of rotten and disintegrating is upbuilding.
Yeah.
That's what edification means, right? So I don't open my mouth unless it builds you up.
Yeah.
Now that's interesting. So he's not, he's not just saying don't do these things over here. He's saying don't even open your mouth unless you know it builds somebody up. Now that's pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
So everything I'm going to say is going to help you.
Yeah.
Okay. Go on.
According to the need of the moment.
So it might be the right thing, but not the right time.
Yeah.
So if you have something to say to somebody and you choose the wrong time to do it, you've still missed.
Yeah.
So you have to think about this. You got some hesitation before you speak. What'd your mom always say? Think before you speak.
Yeah.
Right. So you got, does this actually help you by building you up? Is it the right moment for now where I need to say this? Because you could be right, but you could be wrong in the way that you're right. So you're wrong even if you're right.
Right.
Yeah. And then there's one more here.
So that it will give grace to those who hear.
So it has to be something that fuses grace into them.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? So I don't open my mouth unless I am convinced that you will be built up. It's exactly what's needed right now. And spiritually speaking, it activates grace for you in your life. You're fused with grace in your life. Those 3 criteria, let me open my mouth.
Yeah.
That's we would probably not be talking a lot,
right?
Or very slow if we did that.
And I think that's why the verse in Proverbs, like it's talking about being slow to speak. Like you think about what you're going to say before, because like all these 3 steps, you have to go through them and process them before you open your mouth. And that's what you got to know what you're going to say and go through that process through these steps. Which if we did, we might save ourselves quite a bit of conflict. Right.
Which is great. And I'm all up for that.
Yeah.
And couples who find themselves maybe struggling, this is where to maybe look and go, oh, okay, could this be actually what we are struggling with? Thomas Watson said, God has given us a double fence before our tongue. He says he's given us 2 lips and then 2 rows of teeth. So imagine that, like he's put this big block in front of your, tongue so that you don't offend with it, which is really, really good. Okay, so let's dive in even more specifically, and let's talk about couples, and let's talk about relationships. I'm thinking specifically of how, let's talk about tone. Let's talk about style. Let's talk about all the different kinds of reasons that things could go astray and get kind of wonky on us. So I'm thinking of, here's some things. Let's talk about communication. Mm-hmm. When we say communication, we're talking about the process by which thoughts, ideas, and emotions are exchanged. So there's a verbal side, but we haven't said anything about the nonverbal side.
Right.
Okay, let's talk nonverbal for a second. Is nonverbal a thing?
Yeah.
How do you know?
I can see it.
Oh, okay, you can see it, but is it biblical to talk about nonverbal?
Yeah.
Yeah, you sure? So, well, it is. Can you think of a situation? I don't know. His name was Cain. God was talking to him, and the nonverbal was the signal that God said, listen, I don't have to have omniscience to see where your heart's at. I can just look at your face. Do you remember the story? Genesis 4. So Cain was rejected by God.
Yeah.
He came to offer an offering, and God's like, no, thanks. Abel's offering, which we learn in the scripture, was given by faith. It was given as a testimony and reaching back to the great sacrifice that God had done for Adam and Eve. And he did it with great joy. Cain brings an offering obligatory as a non-believer. God's like, I don't accept this.
Yeah.
So Abel is pleasing to the Lord. Cain is furious. Yeah. And God shows up in Genesis 4, and he says, why has your countenance fallen? It's an interesting statement. I can look at your face, Cain, and I can see something is wrong with your heart. And then he does something really interesting. He says to him, this is chapter 4, in verse 6. Well, it says in verse 5, Cain became very angry and his countenance fell. And the Lord said to Cain, why are you angry and why has your countenance fallen? If you do well, will not your countenance be lifted up? In other words, if you're getting confronted right now with an opportunity to sin or not, if you turn away from this sinful anger, which I can see on your face, I don't need omniscience, I can tell you, you're going to do well. Like, choose in your heart and I'll see it on your face.
Yeah.
So there's a nonverbal there.
Right.
If you do not do well, that is to say, you're going to give in to sin. Sin is crouching at the door and its desire is for you, but you must master it. It's a fascinating insight. God's like, your nonverbal is so obviously out of whack here, which tells me your heart is murderous. So here's the heart connection, not just to your words, but the heart connection to your visible physical appearance. The way that you hold your eyes, the way you're gritting your teeth, the way that you're standing with intimidation, your fists clenched. Yeah. What are some other visual cues that somebody's not well spiritually?
I think they're just like on the kind of opposite side, like they're down, they're not making eye contact with anybody. Like they're just like frowning, no smile on their face.
They're withdrawn, sullen, aloof.
Yeah.
Well, and some people that they're not talking because they don't trust you. Trust has been broken. But other people, they're not talking because they haven't processed what they're thinking yet.
Yeah.
And so sometimes, if you make a judgment and jump to conclusions about the one, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you saying anything? You could be unnecessarily offending that person because I'm still trying to put my own thoughts together about what I think about things.
Right.
Or do I share this knowledge because knowledge is power? And if I give this information to somebody, I've given them what they need, and I don't know if I can trust them yet with it, right? There's other people who, when they are excited and they're joyful, they can't stop talking. And that's not a case of them being, territorial or selfish with the conversation. They're just excited. There's other people, and I've seen this, Braden, and maybe you've seen this too, is there's some people who want to process out loud.
Yeah.
So, for example, Jana is an out loud processor. So for her, she loves to share with me whatever's on her heart. But if I make the mistake of interrupting her, it's like she's riding a bike and I push her over. Like she loses her place, she can't think, and I'm like, so what's helpful for me with her is just knowing she wants me to fully be engaged. She wants my eye contact. She doesn't want me looking at my phone. There's a big indication to you're not listening, so don't do that. Set your phone down. But she wants to look at me. She wants to share with me. She doesn't necessarily want me to interrupt with her. From what she's saying, she doesn't want me to fix it if there's a problem. Part of what makes her so unique is that she loves to process, and in the process of processing, come to conclusions that she needs to because she's trying to clear her head. And when I talk, I actually interrupt that process and get in her headspace, and it doesn't help her. And so for her, oftentimes, she'll get to the very end and she'll be like, honey, thank you so much. That was so helpful. And I'm like, sure. Glad I could help.
Yeah.
She doesn't need me to talk. She needs me to listen.
Right.
There's other times where she's sad and she's got questions and she wants me to reassure her with truth about her fears. There's other times where she just wants to be goofy and silly and fun. So you can see that there could be a mismatch. There could be a mismatch based on moods. There could be a mismatch based on intent. There could be a mismatch based on assumptions about what the other person is thinking, and this is another thing for Jana, and I love this about her, but she'll go from subject to subject to subject to subject really fast without telling me she's changing lanes. And so I'll think we're talking about something or someone 2 subjects ago, and I'm lost. Now, part of that is her mind moves so fast.
Yeah.
Also means I got to keep up, with her. But for her, she's also got to slow down for the rest of us mortals, so that we can understand what she's saying.
Right.
But there's uniqueness to communicating with her that's very different than me. I'm usually pretty well measured before I say something. I usually mean every word of what I say. Usually every word is very deliberately, I'll throw the most important stuff up front. But Jana will miss the first things I say on a consistent basis because she's listening to get to the bottom line. So she's not listening to details. She's listening to what's underneath it. And so sometimes we'll have like, wait, didn't you hear me just say that? And what'll happen is if she latches onto something in the conversation that I'm saying, mentally she'll leave the conversation and she'll start thinking about that. So the things that I'm saying, she's not hearing. And this isn't a flaw in her. This is her able to take apart things that I'm saying in such a way that she understands. But then if I just keep going and I'm not aware that that's happening and I'm not being a servant in that conversation, I'll just keep going on and on and on and on, kind of like I'm doing right now, not giving you an opportunity to talk. But there's just so many different expressions of that is what I'm trying to say. One's not preferred over the other, but there's just differences.
Yeah. Yeah. So another example from 2 Corinthians chapter 6, Paul says, starting in verse 11, our mouth has spoken freely to you, O Corinthians. Our heart is opened wide. You are not restrained by us, but you are restrained in your own affections. Now in a like exchange, I speak as to children, open wide to us also. So let's break that down. What's Paul saying here? Well,
he's talking to the Corinthians who at the moment have been withdrawn from him because they've believed the lies of false teachers, and they've welcomed that falsehood and non-gospel into their church. So Paul, who the last time he was there, some guy interrupted his sermon. This is all background and context. Some guy interrupted his sermon and shut him down, and the church joined that guy and didn't defend Paul. So Paul left brokenhearted and sad. He writes them a letter where he kind of rips them a new one, and it's really severe. And he calls them to repentance for what they've done to allow that falsehood in and among them. But one of the things he says in that whole thing is when you started embracing lies, you started pulling away your affection from me. I can tell that you are restrained now. You're holding back what you should give. That if we have a healthy relationship, there should be two-way communication, and you just read it, there should be affection. I'm fully giving you all my affection, but you're not returning it.
Yeah.
You're being selfish. If you're repentant, he says, show me that affection too. It's actually a really, really insightful passage about how communication works. It's reciprocal, it's mutual, it's intimate, it's life-giving, and it's emotional. Yeah. And you can communicate that, but there's a righteous way to do it. And if you just are flaccid and held back and aloof, sitting in some form of judgment, no, you are wrong. And it's usually, like in that case, underneath it, there's sin. So let's talk now about different kind of communication thing, because there's good communication and there's bad communication. I would say bad communication, there's things that are confusing. Like you don't have to work hard to be unclear. That part of serving people in communication is working hard to communicate in a way that you can be understood by removing unnecessary barriers to your communication. Being offensive. Some people find great joy in being harsh. And they think that's just me. I'm just harsh. I just say it like it is. No, you're a jerk. And you need to repent of that, right? The fool doesn't delight in understanding, Proverbs 18 says, but only in revealing his own mind. That there's a person who you don't really want to know what they think. And when they open their mouth or you get a text from them, you're like, roll your eyes, because you're like, here's another example of something that's just unhelpful. and their comment is, well, this is just me. You have people that are aggressive unnecessarily. You have people that are held back. You have people that are late in their communication.
Yeah.
I could have used that information 20 minutes ago.
Right.
And you had it and you didn't say something.
Mm-hmm.
Why not? Information that's incomplete. If I act on information, it's not helpful. Communication that's constantly distracted or rude or self-contradictory. You ever talk to somebody and you're like, wait, you just said the opposite 2 seconds ago. I don't know how to follow what you mean.
Right.
Scripture says that's a person who talks out of both sides of their mouth. So there's some bad communication, but then there's good communication. I mean, I think good communication will be clear and honest and candid and timely and concise and relevant to the moment and consistent with what you said before and even the nonverbal cues that are invited into that moment, I think are really, really important. Now, when we talk, we look each other in the eyes. Mm-hmm. If I'm looking past you constantly, for something else going on in the room, I'm not giving you my full attention.
Right.
There's an unhelpful side to that. But let's talk for a minute about tone. Can we talk about tone?
Yeah.
So there's a positive and a negative tone. Now you can tell that in speech. You can't always tell that in other forms of communication, such as
texting.
Can't tell that in texting.
Yeah.
That's why they created emojis.
Right.
Right. Mm-hmm. Or abbreviations. You know several of them. I've seen you text me those for sure. There's some that you've sent. I'm like, I have no idea what ROTFL is. And you have to enlighten me that it's rolling on the floor laughing. Yeah. And I'm like, okay. Yeah. And then you send me all kinds of other things to communicate what's missing in the tone. I don't pick up your tone.
Right.
So what's the effect of tone? Positive and negative.
It helps communicate like your emotions, how you're feeling and how you're feeling about a specific subject and how it's impacting you. Are
you ready to go? Are you ready to go?
Yeah.
Like that, those both say something.
Yeah.
Right. Are you going to wear that? Are you going to wear that?
Yeah.
There's emphasis in there that says a lot. And you can some kind of communicate this in text, right?
Yeah.
All caps.
Yeah.
Our code for
yelling.
You're yelling at me. Why are you yelling at me? You can send texts that are like one after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other. Just I'm going to overwhelm you. Mm-hmm. And tone is implied.
Yeah.
But what do you think the effect of tone has? What do you think? Like what's positive or negative? I mean, how does that affect Ephesians 4:29? Let no unwholesome word come out of your mouth.
Right. Yeah, kind of some of the examples that you gave, depending on your tone, like you can take a sentence, depending on your tone, that same sentence can either be unwholesome talk or it can be edifying.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, and life and death are in the power of the tongue, Proverbs says.
Yeah.
So literally you got a sword behind those teeth.
Yeah.
You could cut somebody so deeply. I mean, and here's the thing with being married, you can wound mortally so bad the person that you say you love more than anybody else by one word.
Yeah.
And by contrast, you can lift that person too.
Yeah.
Job, when his friends came to torment him, it says they were there for 7 days before they said a word. And in the ancient custom, the reason they did that, well, there's two reasons in the text. Number one, they were just so appalled at what he looked like that their friend could be reduced to that. But there was also a custom in the ancient world that you let the person who's suffering speak first. That was just a dignity and a respect. So as soon as he opened his mouth, they're like, go get him. And of course, they blamed him for all kinds of things. And he says, sorry, counselors, you are.
Yeah.
But then he makes this interesting statement in Job 6. He says, how painful are honest words. Isn't that interesting? You're being honest.
Yeah.
But the pain you're inflicting. He says, how painful are honest words, but what does your argument prove when the words of one in despair are words to the wind? He says, you're editing all my typos? You're slicing and dicing all my words? People, when they're in despair, say things that express what they're feeling that don't necessarily reflect how they know they should be thinking.
Yeah.
That's just part of it. Mm. And he says, you sit down and you show me how I've erred. Take all my words, take them apart, and they do for 33 chapters. They just pile on him like crazy with all their words. Mm. And they at one point say, you know why your children are dead, Job? Because you're a wicked unbeliever. Can you imagine that?
Wow.
Like I would be like, okay, we're done.
Yeah.
So the tone with which they came to was so harsh and so intense. And Job's like, I have to teach you to comfort me in my affliction, which is insane and ridiculous.
Yeah.
But there's a tone you use when you're tucking your kids in at night. There's a tone you use when you're intimate and romantic. There's a tone you use when somebody's about to get hit by a truck. And if you mix those, or if you pick one that you always use all the time, people don't know how to distinguish between, you. So laboring, it's part of developmental maturity. Even people in the world who don't know God understand some of this stuff. But if I'm going to serve people, I need to choose what tone matches what moment. There was this study done. I'm interested in it. I watched the study itself online, and if it was online, it's true. That's what Abraham Lincoln said. And but for 30 days, these people they spoke kindly to a plant, and they yelled at a different plant. If you've seen this,
I think I've seen this. Yeah.
Yeah. After 30 days, the plant that got yelled at got the same water, same sunlight, died.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what all goes into that. Right. I don't think plants have feelings and should wear sweaters. But there's something in that. The same thing was done. I know I've seen this as described to me in the military, some of the work I do. They will take people, and they do this in law enforcement as well. They'll have them sit in a chair, and behind them is a big wide trash can, and they just take a balled up piece of paper and throw it in the trash can behind them. So they do it first, swish, right in the middle. They get to look around, turn and see where it is, and then look forward and throw it behind them. Swish. The next time they're given the same piece of paper, someone will come in there and drill sergeant go bananas on them and yell at them, insult them, tell them that they miss by like a mile. Third person comes in and encourages them, take a break. Sorry you had to go through that. Go ahead and take a shot. Swish again. It's just interesting what ends up happening to you if you're on the receiving end of harsh, deliberately offensive, unnecessarily unhelpful communication. It just damages you.
Yeah.
So tone. Here's something, though, that I think most people don't consider. And this is, let's take a second on this. Let's talk about source. The source of the communication. If your buddy at the gym says something to you versus your wife says something to you. If your buddy at the gym's like, "Hey, fatso, get off the rack. It's my turn."
Yeah.
If your wife says, "Hey, fatso," or if you say to your wife, "Hey, fatso," let me just tell you, that scar on your neck, you just earned it.
Yeah.
There's certain source determines weight.
Right.
If you're talking to somebody and it's just like a back and forth exchange, your buddies, that's like a 5-pound weight. If your boss comes in and says something to you, it's like 100-pound weight. If a political leader, a policeman says something to you, that feels like 1,000. Hey, if you're driving along, hey, you might want to slow down, honey. Sure, that sounds great, babe. Blue and red lights behind you. Sir, you need to slow it down. Magically, you feel the weight of that officer's blue polyester on your heart. As a dad, and I had to learn some of this the hard way, Braden. As a dad, and those of you who listen to this, they're going to be, married and have kids. You got to practice this now. My words weigh like 10 tons to my children. If I show disappointment in my children, and there may be times where I have to express that, that is like a megaton of bricks. I just dropped the atom bomb on the kids.
Yeah.
And so there's times where you just really choose, is this the right time? Because who I am as their dad weighs differently than a teacher does, or than another one of their friends does, or somebody on the playground, or somebody in their class, or something like that. So being conscious of my weight, like if your boss walks by, Braden, and he's like, "Hey, Braden, can you have that? Can you get that done for me soon?" Now he could mean within the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Or he could mean by 2:00.
Yeah.
There's something about his weight that makes you stop and listen. When God talks, this is the weight of the universe.
Yeah.
Right. Weighing on us. So learning how what we say weighs. When I speak to my wife, I have the power to encourage and uplift her like no other. And sometimes she'll be so helped by something I say, or so discouraged by something I say. And I'm like, whoa, I didn't get that at all. And weight is what I'm usually missing when that happens. I think then let's talk about, so you got tone, you have source, you have weight, and some topics are more weighty than others, right? If we're talking about what we're going to have for dinner, that shouldn't weigh like we're talking about where we're going to move, what job to take, things like that. Some people don't know how to do that. They'll melt down over a conversation, Subway or Blimpies. You know, do we want to get sushi or do we want to get Italian tonight? Like if that's where we're at and we have this major deterioration of our relationship or something like that, the weight of the topic is so out of proportion to the tone and the source. All that stuff is just kind of, out of balance. But there are certain kinds of things, as I said earlier, if I see one of my kids running towards the road, I'm going to yell at a voice that says you're in danger. Yeah. And it's going to feel that level of weight to it. There's amount, so tone, source, weight, amount. You can overtalk or undertalk. We kind of mentioned that. But then let's talk about intent. This is how many times do you hear like, oh, that wasn't my intent. Somebody's offended by something. He said, that wasn't my intent. Right. So if I ran you over with my truck and I'm like, boom, and I'm like, oh, shoot, what was that? And I get out and I ran you over and I'm like, oh, Braden, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to run you over. Oh, what?
You're like, I'd be quite upset. Like, dude, you did run me over.
Yeah, the effect is you still got ran over. Yeah. Yeah, you're still bleeding. Yeah. Like something inside you popped when I did. Yeah. And you feel something moving and it's probably your internal organs like bleeding out. Yeah. So you probably need to get to the hospital. Even though I didn't intend to run you over,
you still did.
I did. You're hurt. So sometimes we don't take responsibility for those things. Yeah. You took it wrong. Yeah. What are some other lame things we say when that happens? Okay, I have one. I'm sorry that hurt you. What's that mean? What's that mean, actually? I'm sorry I hurt you. That means you're so weak to be offended at something so small. Yeah. Yeah. You know? Or I might have done that, but you did.
Yeah. Not taking the blame shifting, put on someone else.
Yeah, my offense isn't as big as yours. Yeah. Well, you deserved it. Yeah. You deserved it. My bad behavior is your fault. Yeah. Or here's a list of words not to say, right? Here's a war of words. Not my problem. Not my monkey, not my circus. That's on you. Oh, yeah. That works great in a relationship. I just want you to know. You always do this. You never do that. Always and never are words you always never want to say, right? You got any more?
Say I've heard, I'm sorry if I did this. It's admitting to it, but not fully.
Yeah. Not that I did this, but if I did this. You did. Yeah. So my wife's favorite 2 words, I'll say this if we're having an exchange, calm down. Yeah. Guys, write that down. Yeah. And now cross it out. Never use that. Yeah. Some conversation can be manipulative, like, well, if you really loved me.
Oh, yeah.
Right. You never do this. You should have known, or you're not listening to me, or you took it wrong, or you're making a big deal out of nothing. Or this is my favorite. That's just how I am. Well, you need to change how you are because how you are stinks before the Lord. It's wrong. Yeah. Stop it. So those are some examples of how that plays out. And then maybe one last category here, then we can talk about conflict because conflict's a thing. Just spend a few minutes on that. This is what I said. This is what you heard. Like there are times in a relationship where someone very well-meaning says something that lands on someone very different than what they meant. And what I mean by that is that there are certain ways that God has wisely and lovingly made us. And part of this is knowing your spouse. When Peter tells the men in 1 Peter 3, husbands, live with your wives in an understanding way. You need to know them. How do they communicate? Yeah. And vice versa, ladies, understanding your man. Like some people love to be outward verbal processors. They speak in a group setting and they're trying to generate momentum by involving other people. They're coming to it without their preformed ideas and they're engaging you. They don't think about the practical stuff. They think about the big picture stuff. And they'll share stories, usually very inspiring stories, but they're listening. And I think this is important. And maybe if you're a couple, kind of like take this as a little bit of a checklist, like which one of these 4 are you? Are you the person that loves to have a authentic, vulnerable exchange with no action to take, no problem to solve, no research to find? You know, you're trying to just have a one-to-one, no strings attached, interactive exchange with a person. Like that's some people are wired that way. That's just who they are. But the person, if they're wired differently, doesn't relate to that. So it's like, I didn't understand anything you just said. Like you told me a story, but what are we supposed to do with that? Right. You know, that there's kind of a mismatch, you know, and they don't have a practical idea in mind. They just want to share their heart. And talking with them feels a little bit like going to an amusement park. There's other people who, and I think you're more like this, Braden, they think before they speak. So they're very measured. So they think things through, and they're listening, but they're good at listening and absorbing information, but they're good at asking questions. So like if I'm sharing, and Jana has quite a bit of this too, she's asking me questions, but she's not sharing back. I could immediately interpret that wrongly and assign wrong motives to her, whereas she's wired just to say, well, I want to understand. So the more she asks me questions, the more she's actually drawing me out. But I want her to do what I've been doing because I expect her to be me, and that's not fair, to her.
Right.
Jana will oftentimes listen for, and maybe you have somebody like this, if you're in a relationship with someone like this, she's always listening for gaps, holes, problems, or friction. And she'll stop me right there. And if she hears a problem, she'll want to draw attention to it.
Yeah.
And she'll want to solve it. And I'm like, well, I'm just sharing my heart. Similar kind of going the other way. There's other people who struggle to like, I don't want to hear the whole picture. I want to take these little pieces segment by segment, that they conversation with them feels more like a mind map. You ever done a mind map? Well, a mind map is like this circle has 4 different directions it could go. And so we're going to take each of those different areas, and then we're going to talk about the 4 different directions each one of those might go. So we're now 1 to 4 to 16, exponential like that. I think there's other people that their thoughts are only kind of geared towards what's practical.
Yeah.
So they don't do well in ethereal conversations. They don't do well in inspiring stories. They just want to know some essential basic facts. You remember the guy? No, you're too young. Just the facts, ma'am. Just wants data for data's sake. I don't want to know how you feel about it. I don't want you to comment on it. Can you just tell me what happened?
Yeah.
Just don't insert yourself at all. There's some people that are like that. And there's people that when they talk, maybe they give more detail than that's necessary. Or when they talk, you hear them talking about risks or dangers or, they don't do well in a kind of a fast moving brainstorming kind of environment. Their conversation is a little bit more like a checklist or walking through a series of things. And then I think there's other people, and I see a lot of them in police. They just want you to get right to the point. Like if you're listening to this podcast and you're still with us, you're like, get to the point, right?
Yeah.
You never wonder what they're thinking. They tend to speak with intensity. Sometimes in conversation they collide. And this is where you got to be careful because this could turn into pride. But you can see the mismatch for the person who's like, get to the point versus the person who wants to share. If those two have married one another or dating one another, their communication could feel like, man, he's just always so intense and he's always just so forceful and bottom lining everything and telling me what's not practical about what I'm saying and telling me to summarize all the time and then asking me, well, now what? I mean, you want me to just send you an email with like a bullet point outline? I just wanted to kind of share my heart with you. So you could see how people just wired different ways, have different styles of communicating where this is what I said, but this is what I heard.
Right.
Or you didn't say it the way that I am, so now I'm not going to receive your communication. I'm going to ask you to speak the way I listen, rather than me listen the way that I know you speak. And so the question is, who's going to serve who first? So you have all those things just kind of in play all at one time.
Yeah, even to know how to, like you were saying, you gotta listen to the way they speak. I've heard you need to communicate about communicating, and I listened to this podcast episode by The Living Waters with Ray Comfort.
Yeah.
And it was episode 116. It's tips for healthy communication.
Oh, yeah. You got to add that to the show notes.
Yeah, I'll add that in the link. And then one of the guys on there, I don't remember his name, but he wrote out about 20 different questions about communication. And the intent of it is to sit down with your spouse or whoever you're dating and to ask each other those questions and write them down and work on it. And I'll just read a couple here.
Please do. Give us all 20.
All 20, yeah. So it says, 1, what are the things that bother you the most about the way I communicate? 2, what are the things that bless you the most about the way I communicate? 3, what times are the most difficult for you to communicate about serious issues in our lives? 4, when is your preferred time to communicate about serious issues in our lives? 5, what settings do you prefer to communicate about serious issues in our lives? 6, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate me as a listener and what can I do to improve? 7, how can I make it easier for you to receive correction or constructive criticism from me? 8, how would you describe the way I typically respond when you confront me about any issue in life? 9, do I give you the sense that there are things you can't freely approach me about? If so, what are they? 10, is there anything I can do to become a more approachable person? 11, are there regular words or phrases used in my communication that bother you? If so, what? 12, if you are being inappropriate in communication, such as sarcastic, hurtful, harsh, giving the silent treatment, joking, angry, inattentive, what can I do to help you change course in the heat of the moment? 13, what things do you think we can do to go deeper in communication as a couple? 14, would you say that I'm quick to sincerely apologize and ask for forgiveness when I have wronged you? 15, would you say that I am quick to sincerely forgive when you have apologized and asked me for forgiveness when you have wronged me? Is it instant or do I let things linger? 16, what things can I do to give you the sense that you are truly forgiven after you've sought my forgiveness? 17, when I'm seeking your forgiveness, what things can I say or do to help make it easier for you to forgive me? 18, do you feel that there's any part of my heart or life that I have closed off to you? 19, are there any areas of communication that you would personally like to grow in? If so, what? And 20, are there any areas of your communication that you would like to change? If so, what?
Wow.
Yeah.
I'll just tell you right there, like, let's just close in prayer. I mean, that's just, that's so good.
Yeah. And I'll add a link in the show notes for that episode. Go listen to a really good episode. And then I typed them all out so you can just have them right in front of you so you can check that out too.
Yeah. I think that's so good, Braden. I mean, that list is fairly comprehensive. And if you're paying attention to that on the proactive side, man, you're knocking out so much of the conflict that could otherwise just so easily emerge, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a spectacular list and a great way to evaluate yourself. And then I think maybe pick one or two of those that are kind of the most essential right now for your relationship and get to work on those. Yeah. Every single one of those, all 20. Like if you're sitting there going like, check, 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 like I would say check your pulse because you're either dead or like you're lying. Yeah. So, having an evaluative tool like that is, man, that's so good. I have so many uses for that in my life. Conflict, there's so much we could say about conflict, and we probably ought to do our own series sometime on conflict and peacemaking and all of that. James just says, what's the source of quarrels and conflicts among you? It's your sinful desires that wage war in your members. There's something you want that you don't have, and oftentimes we use communication to get it. And he even says, well, we sometimes communicate to God. We ask him for what we want, and God's not going to give us that which will sin against him and rob others of what he wants to do in their life through us. And so I think understanding that and getting some handlebars to ride the bike in communication is so good. Well, so okay, this is really helpful and this is really good. Why don't we think about some now what things? I think one thing that comes to mind for me is, and this would be a challenge for the couples that are out there listening to this, is sit down and interview, like make this a fun homework assignment. Yeah. Sit down and interview another couple, a couple that you respect, a godly couple, and just say, hey, would you talk to me about how communication works in your life? What are your highs? What are your lows? Tell us about a good fight and how you worked through it. Like, how do you guys work through communication? And are there some practical things that you guys would impart to us that we could start putting into our lives to give us an example to follow? Yeah. I think that's key as a takeaway from today, but that's very horizontal still. Mm-hmm. There has to be a vertical component to that.
Yeah. And the vertical aspect I think is so important is why we need communication with each other. We need to have communication with God. And we talked about already, God has communicated through his word to us. We need to communicate with him. And I think that's where prayer comes in. Communicate with whoever you're with, but you need to get before the Lord and pour out your heart to him. Tell him what you're going through, what you're feeling, what your emotions are. Yes, he already knows them, but he wants to hear from you. You need to go before him because he calls you to come to him, to his throne of grace, to receive mercy and help in time of need. And he wants to know how you're feeling.
Well, I think of Psalm 62:8. It says, trust in him at all times, O people. Pour out your heart before him. God is a refuge for us. What a great thing. What if in our relationships we talked so much more to God? Yeah. And maybe that not only sanctified our speech, but that gave us the grace, like you just said, that we need when we go into these other relationships to reflect and honor him as we do that.
Yeah. Well, there you go, listeners. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the It Stands Written podcast. And Lord willing, we will see you on the next one.